Okay, we are recording. All right. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to fairly quickly, go over the three problems that you had for the pretest. After I do that, I want to quickly go over the homework and the labs especially the homework, to make sure everybody knows exactly what they should be doing and what they don't have to do. So I'm in Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new project. And the first one that we're supposed to create in here is called miles per gallon console. And you'll have to take my word for it because I don't want to keep making shares, but I have a brand new folder that I've created on the desktop called Chapter 8 Pretest. All right, and my solution name, I'll just call it Chapter 8 Pretest Problems. All right, so again, the first one that we're supposed to create here is this miles per gallon console. So I'm going to create that now. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to put in using static system.console. And very quickly, I'm just going to paste, because what I did was I copied what we were supposed to be doing here. I copied all of it just into a text file. All right, so when we look at this, again, console app, there should be 5 parallel arrays. Each array should be of size 6. All right, so there'll be a first name array with six different strings, a last name array with 6 different strings. Those are a double array with 6 different miles driven, a gallons used array with 6 different double gallons used, and a double array miles per gallon program. In addition, we're supposed to use the constants that are shown here. Min miles with a value of 1, max miles with a value of 1,000, min gallons with a value of 1, and max gallons with a value of 100. The application should validate first name and last name are not blank. All right, if they are blank, we're supposed to throw an argument exception, which, as it says there, should be handled with a try catch. Now, with this other one, just to show you that you don't have to do everything with a try catch. So with the miles driven and the gallons used, we're going to force the user to put in something that's numeric and something that's within range. All right. In addition, as the program's running, because again, there will be 6 of these, you should keep track of the low MPG, the high MPG, and then when you're all done, you should take the total miles divided by the total gallons and get your average MPG. Main should act totally as a driver or as much as possible. And then at the end of the program, you should output all of the information. So hopefully, at least, everything that was in there made at least some sense. So I'm going to come up to the top here, and I'm going to create some global constants.
Could you change your share?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so I first created about, I don't know, 5 or 6 global constants. I've got a constant int that I called num elements. That's going to be how many things are in the array, and I made it 6. Another const int that was for min miles, so that's the minimum number of miles you can drive, and that's 1. Another const int max miles, that's the most miles you can drive, and that was 1,000. These are just arbitrary values. They don't really mean much of anything. Const int min gallons, and that had a value that was equal to 1, and another semicolon there, and a const int max gallons, and that was set to 100. Like I said, and I'm not trying to make too big a thing out of it, but I just want to make sure that you get it. These are arbitrary values. We could have picked anything in there we wanted to pick in. But, again, you were told there's 6 elements in the array. You were told that the minimum number of miles you can drive is 1. The maximum is 1,000. So we're talking about on a tank of gas. And I know even 1,000 is not really realistic, but that's what I put in there. The minimum number of gallons that you can put in is 1, and the maximum gallons that you can put in is 100. All right. So with that said, I made some global arrays. And as you'd guess, there were like 5 of them. So these are going to have to be static because we're working directly with main here. So static string bracket bracket, and I called it just what it is. First names equal new string of size num elements. So that's going to be the first one. And I'm going to just grab this, put it in there 5 times. So we need a last names. All right. And then we need, and these will be the next 3 are doubles. And these will be, change that, and change that. Okay, so these will be just what they are again: miles driven, gallons used, and finally the actual MPG. Now, let me just ask you, does what I've done so far, does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I think where I run into problems on the console is to how to format it so it makes sense when they're inputting the info, but
Okay.
I guess we'll get there pretty soon.
Gotcha. So when we get to that point, if something doesn't make sense, please, by all means, stop me. All right. So we'll also have some global variables, and arrays are variables, but I'll put other global variables. And those were just the high, the low, with the average MPGs. So static, double, high MPG, which I just set equal to 0.0, static, double, low MPG, which again was set equal to 0.0. Static, double, oops, don't know what I did there. Static, double, AVG for the average MPG, which will be equal to 0. To figure all that stuff out, I'll need to keep track of my total number of miles and my total number of gallons. So static, double, tote miles, which again I set equal to 0.0, and another static, oops, double, which was tote gallons, which again was set equal to 0.0. Now, again, I could take the time and come over here and write comments for all this stuff, but I'm hoping at least that the names I used make enough sense that I don't have to do that. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. And I mean, you're my only gauge here, but hopefully, like I said, so what are we using here? Well, that's going to hold 6 first names, 6 last names, 6 different miles driven values, 6 different gallons used values. This will be the calculated MPG 6 times. All right. And really, with my high and low, I'm going to assume my high is 0, and I'm going to set my low equal to 1001. I have talked about this kind of thing before. What I'm doing right there is I am, in essence, assuring that the first time I figure out a miles per gallon, it will become both the high miles per gallon and it'll become the low miles per gallon. And then as I do the other 5, they'll be adjusted accordingly. All right. So again, hopefully at least that makes sense. Now, I did the best I could to make main totally a driver. So I've got here for int LCV for my loop control variable equals 0, LCV less than the number of elements, plus LCV. So in other words, again, I want to do this 6 times. Well, with each one, I just decided to clear the screen. okay? And I'm going to say first names LCV. Now it's going to give me errors because I'm going to be calling routines I didn't create yet. Equals input name, and I'm going to pass it an F in there, meaning I want the first name, and LCV. So it knows which location I have in there. So then last names, LCV, and we're going to go over what all this means in just a second, equals input name, and I'm going to pass in there L for last name and LCV. Now, before I write these routines, which is what I'm going to do next, I'm going to skip the other three just for a minute. But what I want you to understand from here is when you input a first name or a last name, it's the same routine. I could have literally written two different routines, one called input first name and one called input last name. But if I had done that, I would have been writing almost exactly the same code. And there's a tenet, so to speak, in the world of programming that's dry. Do not repeat yourself. So I tried not to repeat myself. All right. So what does that mean? Well, let's come in here and write this routine. So this will be a static. And notice I'm taking whatever this calls, whatever this is, I'm returning it and putting it in there. And what is that? That's a string array element. So it's got to return a string. All right. And it's called input names. And what do we pass into it? All right. We pass into it a string, and it's either the first name or it's the last name. So I don't know which one. I just called it which. All right. And an int, which is our LCV. All right. Now I'm getting this error right here. Well, first of all, that should have been name. Okay. But I'm getting an error because it's supposed to return a string. Right now, it's not returning anything. So I'm just going to put down here, return the empty string. I'm going to change that in just a minute. But the point is, you see now I have no errors in my program. Plus, you see these two things are not grayed out anymore because they're being used. All right. And again, hopefully, at least that's just stuff. Oh, that makes sense. All right. Because that's what we're shooting for in here. All right. Now, when we do this, we want to input a name. But as of right now, I don't know if it's a first name or if it's a last name. All right. You could say I don't know, but I actually do know because this thing that's called which either holds an F or it holds an L. Okay. Does that part make sense?
I'm not sure about the F and L, how the
Okay.
user determines that yet, but
Oh, okay.
everything else
All
does.
I'm saying is the F means that we're going to enter a first name, and the L means that we're going to enter a last name. That's all those mean. There's nothing significant. I could have called them A and B, X and Y, anything. I could have put first and I could have put last here. I mean, if that makes it easier to understand, I could put first there and I could put last right there. If that makes it easier for you to understand.
Yeah,
So
I think I get it now. Yeah.
this is just that. Whether I'm calling it with that or whether I'm calling it with that, it doesn't matter. All right. And LCV is just the position in the array. So remember, there's 6 elements, but we start with element 0. So it's going to be 0 the first time, 1 the second time, and then the 6th time, it'll be 5. All right. So we're coming in here and we want to input a name. Well, that's what we're going to end up returning eventually. So I'm going to stay in here, string name equals double quote, double quote. And don't worry about it right now. We're going to fill that in just a minute. And then when we get done, we're going to return name. Now, right now, the routine isn't doing a flaming thing. All right. But we're going to fix that in just a moment. Okay. So now I put a little something in here. You didn't have to do this, but I'm going to show you what I wrote. And then after I get done and go over it a little bit, you'll have to tell me, oh, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense. All right, so right now, it just says, please enter your, okay? So I could have put an if statement in there that said, if which is equal to first, then write, please enter your first name. Else if which is equal to last, then write, please enter your last name. And that would have been totally fine to do that. It's not a problem. All right, except the only thing on that is it's, it would basically, it'd be a lot of code. It'd be like 6 lines of code. I can replace that with one line of code here. I'm going to put it over 2 lines, but it's really 1 line. And I'm going to say, hey, this thing I just called which, if that's equal to first, then I want to say first name. All right. And if it's not equal to that, all right, whoops, then I want to say last name, just like that. Now, that may not make a lot of sense, but okay, you know that when I call it here, it's passing in first. All right. And when I call it here, it's passing in last. So first, this which becomes first the first time, and this which becomes last the second time. All right. So what I'm checking in here is I'm saying, okay, if this which that was right here, if this which, I don't know what's going on there, if it's equal to the word first, then I want to say, please input your first name. All right. But if it's not, I want to say, please input your last name. So like I said, it's not a big thing, but by putting it like this, I didn't have to write a bunch of if statements and the like. All right. And what I'm going to do is at the end of the day today, I am going to save this and I'll put it out to GitHub. So if you want to take a look at it, you'll be able to. So now I should be able to read in the name. So name equals read line. And the system knows whether it's a new first name, whether it's a first name or whether it's a last name because of the check we put right here. So it's going to say either please enter your first name and do a read line, or please enter your last name and do a read line. In either case, name is holding the value of either the first name I just entered or the last name I just entered. And we were told not to let it be blank. So if name equal, in fact, I should trim it first in case somebody stupidly put in a bunch of blank spaces. So to upper, all right? So if they try that and it's equal to nothing, what does that mean? They put in nothing. And what we're told up here is if they put in nothing, to throw an argument exception and handle it with a try catch. So I'm in a try loop here. I've got that, so I'm going to throw a new argument exception. Not thrown, throw it. All right. And I'm dead in the water if that's the case. There is nothing more that I can do. All right, but I have to catch that exception. So catch argument exception, which I called AE for argument exception. And then what do I want to do? Well, what would be nice to do would be one of those nice message boxes. But this is a console app, so we can't use message boxes. So we've got to do all this with write lines. So I did a write line here, and I said, no name entered, \n. And then I added to that. You didn't have to do this. I mean, this could be handled literally in millions of different ways. And I said defaulting to none. In other words, if you didn't enter a first name, your first name gets put in there as none. All right. Did I have to do it like that? Of course not. There were all sorts of ways this could be done. All right. But the other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to show in here, what was the error message? So system error message. All right. And that was AE, which is this, dot message. Right? So what is it like here? I don't need that. There we go. So what's going to happen if I leave this blank? It's going to print on the screen. Let's put a blank line before that. It's going to print on the screen, no name entered. Then on the next line, it's going to say defaulted to none. Then it's going to skip a couple lines and it's going to say system error message, and it's going to tell me what the error message was. All right. Well, if it's defaulted to none, I better set that name equal to none, and I'm not doing that right now. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say name equals none. And what you've got to understand is it's telling me to read in a first name or a last name here, okay? And here I'm reading it in. If I leave it blank, it's going to be dead in the water. It's just going to stop right there, and it's going to go down and do this, and it's going to set the name equal to none, and then return it. If we put anything in there, it's going to, then it's going to skip the catch because this is not true. And then whatever we put in there. So if I put in there Grant or Jeff or Bill or Mary or Sue, then it's going to take that. So now I have now handled in here, I have now handled inputting my first name and inputting my last name. And if they were invalid, that's handled as well. All right. So again, it may help later for you to look at all the code, but my question for you is, at least conceptually, what we're doing here, does that make sense?
Yes, when we got to the passing in the which, that's when like that first and last kind of clicked for me. So
Okay. And again, maybe that's a dumb name. I don't know. If that's, if it's better, we could have called that the name. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
I could put in here, maybe that's a little better to put in the name. But when I do that, come on, I'm going to have to change everywhere I'm using it in here. So that's the name. I guess that's the only place. So that wasn't terrible. All right. All right. So now I've hopefully have handled these first two things. Now I've got to handle the next two. And what are those? They're my miles driven and they're my gallons used. So I'm again going to get errors when I do these because I haven't written them yet, but I'm going to say miles driven LCV equals, and I just call this one again, what you call it is a big thing, but there I was inputting a name. Here I'm going to be inputting a number. All right. And it's either going to be miles. All right. And again, I'll pass in LCV, which is just which one of these I'm working with. All right. And then I'm going to come down here, copy it, just put it down. And this is going to be gallons used. And instead of passing in miles, I'm going to be passing in gallons. Now I'm getting an error right now, again, because that routine has not yet been written. We're going to write that routine in just 1 second. All right. And it's called input number. Okay. So right after the routine that we just wrote, input name, I'm going to come down here and write. And it's a double because it's got to return a number. All right. And this is input number, and it's going to take in a string. And that string is going to be, again, we called before the name. So now I'll call it the number, and another int, or an int rather, which is our position, our LCV. All right. Now I'm getting the error because it's not returning anything yet. So I'm going to say double number equals 0.0. And then down here someplace, I'm just going to return number. Why? Because now I have no errors there and I have no errors here. That's the only reason I did it like that. All right. This is eventually going to be, number will be filled in with something. But what are we told here? We are told here that when you are working with this number, all right, that there's a few things here, all right, such as, well, first, we should not allow it to be empty. Second, we should not allow it to be non-numeric. Well, if it's empty, it would be non-numeric. And third, all right, it should be within range. So if this thing that we're passing in here was miles, then it's got to be between 1 and 1,000. And if what's being passed in there is gallons, it's got to be between 1 and 100. All right. Now, when we make this check, all right, so we've got this double in here that's called number. But when we first read it in, it's not really a number. It's, remember, when we read something in, it's a string. So let's make a string variable and we'll call it number str. All right. And we won't even give it a value. We won't assign it to anything. But this is going to be what we attempt to convert this into. And again, if you don't understand, give me just a second. So bool, I'm going to make a flag here, and I'm going to set it equal to false. And I'm going to say while this flag is false, and I've called this result and other stuff in the past. It doesn't matter what you call it. All right. But what I want to do in here is I want to check, and the checks I have to make are similar. They're similar, but I have to see whether or not what I'm doing is it miles I'm checking or is it gallons I'm checking? All right. So again, this thing right here either holds miles or it holds gallons. All right. And maybe the number wasn't a great name there. Maybe I should have called it the type. I don't know. And call it whatever we want. So I'm going to do a switch on this because I could have done an if as well, but that's either going to be, that again should either be the word miles or the word gallons. All right. So just so I can start typing something in here, I'm going to say case miles. And for now, I'm just going to type in break. And I'm going to have case gallons. All right. And again, for now at least, I don't want gallons used. I want gallons, and I need to put it in double quotes. All right. So if that's the case, again, all I'm going to do is break. Now, typically when you write this kind of thing, typically you also put in a default case. All right. Well, if it's not miles and it's not gallons, something got screwed up. It should never even be able to be hit. So I'll just put a default in here that says break. Just get out. Now I'm not done yet because now I've got to handle this, and that'll be because we're trying to figure out the miles right now. All right, so that's what we're trying to do. So it's always nice to tell the person exactly what you want them to do. All right, I've said this before, and believe me, I'm not trying to be funny here or cute or anything else. But with that said, I'm going to assume the person writing the program isn't the most, I'm going to assume the person running the program, all right, isn't the brightest light in the world. So I'm going to say here, write, enter miles driven between, and I'm going to let them even know what the range is. So I'm going to say min miles and max miles. All right. And we'll even add on to that a tab. I'm just going to try to line this up a little bit. Okay. So what that, not an N, what that should should end up saying there is enter miles driven between 1 and 1,000. All right. So when we read that in, I can read that into a string. So what do we call it? Number string equal read line. So this now will have a value in it. But again, what if I just hit enter? Or what if I put hello in there? Or whatever. So I've got to check for that. All right. How do I check for that? Well, oops, sorry. Well, what we can do is we can try to parse it right away. So I'm going to say flag equal double dot try parse. What am I trying to parse? My number string. All right. And if it works, what am I trying to put it into? I have to make that a little smaller. There we go. I'm going to try to put it into number. All right. So out number. Now you should, hopefully by now, this should make sense to you. This line of code is saying, take whatever we just inputted and attempt to convert it into a double. If you can successfully convert it into a double, you'll put it into number and flag will be true. If you cannot convert it to number because it's blank or it's non-numeric, then flag will be false. All right. So we want to check to see whether flag is true or false. So let's first check if it's false. So I could say again, if flag equal false, which is totally fine to do. But remember, there is a shortcut for that that says if not flag. And again, if you don't like that shortcut, don't use the shortcut. All right. So this is checking for the case where that convert to double failed. It failed. So I'm just going to do a write line here that says non-numeric miles driven input. All right. And that's fine. Now, when I'm done with that, okay, there's really nothing else to do, but we're going to break here anyway. So if we get down to here, and I'm asking you this question here, so please answer yes or no. Does it make sense to you that if we get down to this else, we put a number in there? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. But it's possible the number we put in is not within range. So we put in, I just held my hand down on the number 1 key, put it in there 13 times, or I put -73. So we have to check for that. So this right here, check for no input. All right. Then this, oops, it doesn't like it when I do that. Right here, we'll do a range check. So I'm going to say if, and two things could happen. Number could be less than min miles, or numbers could be greater than max miles. And I'll put it over 2 lines so it's easier to read. And if that's the case, it's out of range. All right. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to say OOR for out of range, miles driven input. Finally, if I get down to here, if I get down to this else that's right here, okay, if I get down to this else, well, that was a valid number. Valid number has been input. Okay, all I want to do is I want to set flag equal to true. Now, I'm not resetting flag here. I'm not resetting flag here. I think you'd agree with that. All right. And our check is while not flag. So if we put in something that's invalid, it's going to run through this whole switch and it's going to say, oh, flag is still false. So guess what? It's going to run through it all over again. So we are forcing the user in there. We are forcing him or her to put in something that's valid. And if they don't put in something that's valid, they're going to be asked to do it again and again and again and again until they finally do put in a number that's within range. All right. Now, just because I don't want to spend an hour on this program, all right, I'm going to grab all of this, copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste it in here. Now, it's wrong right now, but instead of, for now I got to say gallons used, and that has to be between min gallons and max gallons. All right, number string is fine, this is fine. So now it'll say non-numeric gallons used input. And here we'll be checking it for min gallons, and we'll be checking it for max gallons. And here, if that's the case, then it's an out of range gallons used input. Otherwise, the flag will be true. And then when we're done, a lot of blank lines in here, we just want to return that number. So we have now written and handled all of our inputs, but 4 of the 5 things that we're worried about in here. So the only thing that's in here that's left to do, all right, the only programmatic thing that's in here that's left to do is to figure out our miles per gallon. Because now we got a first name, now we got a last name, now we got a miles driven, now we got a gallons used, and it's a simple divide this by this. All right, so I'm going to call this, and I'm going to say MPG LCV, that's the miles per gallon, and that's equal to, we'll just call it what it is, calculate MPG. But to do that, it needs both the current miles driven and it needs the current gallons used. It needs both of these because it needs to know which miles per gallon it's supposed to be doing. Now I'm getting the error because, again, I haven't written this yet. All right, we'll write that in just a second. And it's actually not a really terrible program, all right, or a terrible routine rather. Now, I did, for lack of better words, I guess you could say, I cheated a little bit in here, all right, because I figured out the low and the high in here as well. Okay, I could have done other routines for the low and the high, but it's only 2 more lines of code. So I need this calculate MPG, and I want you to understand something. This is just the current miles driven. This is just the current gallons used. Those LCVs that you see in the brackets are placeholders, and they're holding which one of these miles or which one of these gallons I'm talking about. All right, so let me get down to the bottom here. And this one has to return a double because it's the miles per gallon. All right, now I don't want to use these big names. Miles per gallon, I'm going to call M. All right, and I have to say it's a double. Gallons used, I'm going to call G. I don't need this anymore in here. Okay. Now, again, I'm getting that error right now because I'm not returning anything. So what we're going to return is the miles per gallon in just a minute. But let's make a double and we'll call it MPG. I don't have to say equals 0 and then come down here and say return MPG. I could do this. Now return. I don't know why it's doing that, but MPG. I could do that. All right. But I'm losing a curly brace there. That's why it's giving me the funky stuff here. So let me fix that. So I could come down here and do it like that. And I could say here, return MPG. But guess what? I already know what the miles per gallon is. What is it? It is M divided by G, miles divided by gallons. All right. Now, the problem is it's an int divided by an int, so it's going to throw away any decimal portion. So, again, I can either cast this one to a double, or I can cast this one to a double, or both. I'll just leave it just like that. All right. So now I have a miles per gallon. But there's two more things I need. I need the low MPG and I need the high MPG. Now, I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to do it. It's not the wrong way, but I could do it like this. I could say if MPG, what I just figured out, is less than the low MPG, okay, then low MPG is equal to MPG. And that would work just fine. It's 4 lines of code, but it would work just fine. All right. I'm going to take those 4 lines and I'm going to comment them out for right now. Why? Because I can say this. Low MPG equals MPG less than low MPG. And remember this. We looked at this a little bit ago. Question mark MPG colon low MPG. So I'm able to, instead of writing 4 lines of code, to replace that with 1 line of code. And it's not a big thing one way or the other. But everywhere you can save a little bit of code, it's kind of nice. So I can do the same thing here and say if it's greater than high, then the high would become that. But now I can just change this to high, and this will become high. It's got to be greater than. All right, MPG, otherwise high. And you can see already looking at this and then looking at this, I've replaced that with 2 lines of code. And it's not like a gee whiz type of moment, but again, I'm using some of the features that are built into the language to make it easier for myself. All right. So now, if we go back and look at what we had in here originally, all right, we have handled 6 first names, 6 last names, 6 miles driven, 6 gallons used. We've converted and calculated 6 miles per gallon. We've used our constants. We validated that first name and last name are not blank. If they were, we threw the argument exception. We forced the user into putting in something numeric and within range. We kept track of the low MPG, the high MPG, not the average yet. We'll have to do that in a minute. All right. So the only thing to do is to output all of the values at the end of the program. Now, another thing that's in here, it's not that it's like super important, but you have to understand this. All right. And that is this. All right. If I'm going to write a routine right now that I'm going to call output all info, just like that. And it's giving me the error because I haven't written it yet. But I don't want to output it 6 times. If I did it inside of the for loop here, I'd be outputting it every time. I don't want to do that. So I take this and I put it outside of the loop. And now I'm going to call it. Again, I'm getting that error. I'm getting that error. Okay, right now I'm getting it because, okay, I'm getting it because it hasn't been written yet. And we're going to write that literally in just a moment. Now, I'm looking in here to see if I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, in here, when we did this routine right here, this one, the one that's called input number, I think you'd agree that if we get down to this point, All right, we said flag to true. We want to get the heck out. We put in a valid number. Since we put in a valid number, we can add that to our total miles. So our total, whatever we call this, total miles plus equal number, which you have to spell right. And all I'm saying is we've got a valid figure in there, so we want to add it to our total miles. And if we come down here and we've got a valid figure, we want to add it to our gallons. I don't know if it was I guess that's what it was. All right. And I forgot those. Sorry about that. So now we want to come down here and write our static void, and we want to output all info. Okay. And if you look, that error that I had in there before is now gone. So what do we want to print out? 6 first names, 6 last names, 6 miles driven, 6 gallons used, and 6 miles per gallon. Well, it sounds to me again, you know, at least to me, it sounds like, oh, that'd be a good place for a loop. And it will be. So, whoops. So I'm going to grab that loop that we put in there, and I'm going to copy it in here. Whoops. Oh, I thought I was going to, but we'll rewrite it. That's fine. So for int LCV equals 0, LCV is less than num elements. So we want to do it 6 times, plus LCV. All right. So we want to print this out, in other words, 6 times. So I'm going to do a right line here. In fact, it would be kind of nice. You don't have to do this, but maybe for before I do this, I'll clear the screen just so it looks kind of nice. All right. And I'm going to come in here and do a right line, and I'm going to say first name, and then I want to print out first name. You'll notice that quite often when you start to do this, the IntelliSense kicks in. It kind of figures out what you want to do. All right, so we want to print out the first name. Then we want to print out the last name. All right. Then we want to print out the miles driven. We don't need a \n here. So then we want to do the miles driven. Then we want to do the gallons used. And finally, we want to do the miles per gallon. And again, we're doing this 6 times. How do I know that? Because we're in a loop that is going to run 6 times. So this will be MPG. Now, when we do this, what would be kind of nice, I'm going to move this over a little bit, would be for these, because we may get god-awful numbers here. So let's do a to string, and we'll do an N2 on here. In other words, we're doing it to 2 decimal places. I lost that somehow. All right. In fact, I'll do all of these. And there should be another paren there. That's why I'm getting that error. Okay. So I will do all 3 of these to 2 decimal places. All right. And that'll print out all of my output, except it's not going to print out my high MPG, my low MPG, my what else? My high MPG, my low MPG, my average MPG. Okay, it's not going to print those out. So I'll come in here and I'll do a read line and a clear, just so it clears the screen. Okay. And now Not sure why it's giving me those errors. Let's see. It's because I've got a problem. Again, I lost a curly brace in there someplace. There we go. Okay, so I've got a read line. I don't want that there. I want that down here. Okay, get rid of that. All right. Somehow my curly braces have gotten goofed up and I don't need this one. There we go. All right. So now that I've done this, that is what I want, that's all in the for loop. This will end that. There we go. All right. Oh my gosh, it's all goofed up in here with my curly braces. So there's one, and it doesn't like something here. MPG. There, that should fix that. That's in the for loop. There's the read line. There's the clear. Boy, that parenthesis was screwing everything up. Not sure how or why, but it was anyway. All right, get rid of this. There. Now everything is good. So now I want to write 3 more write line statements. I'm just going to copy these and I'll paste them right down here. So this will say highest MPG, and we'll still, so that'll be high MPG dot to string. Spell it right. And then this next one will say lowest MPG, and that'll be low MPG. All right. And the only one that's left is our average MPG. Well, the problem with that is that's a calculation, but we can do it right now. So this right here should say, oops, I'm sorry. This one should say average MPG, like that, and then come in here and just say AVG MPG. The problem is right now it's going to say 0 because we never calculated it. So let's calculate that right now. And it's a very simple calculation. We just have to come in here and say our average MPG is equal to our total miles divided by our total gallons. But again, it's an int divided by an int. So I'm just going to cast everything. So double, and I'm going to say tote miles divided by double tote gallons. Like that. Might have one too many of these in there. So there we go. And it'll print that out. Now, that was a heck of a lot to throw at you in an hour. All right. And I should have practiced and gone over it beforehand, see if there's any errors. So let's do a file, save all, and let's run it and see what it looks like. Now, I'm going to have to change my share. I will do that in just a second, but I want to see it is running. Okay. So let me change my share. And you tell me, please, if you can't see it. You see the run on the screen right here where it says, please enter your first name. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try running it the right way. I'm not going to put any errors in here at all. So I'm going to say Bob Smith, 456, 21 miles. All right. Mary Green, 345 and 15 miles. Bill Jones, 567, 29 miles. Kent Clark, 345 and 16 miles. Maggie Jones, 456 and 22 miles. I don't know how many are left. This is either the 5th or the 6th one. All right, I'll put me in there. All right, so there's the first one. I guess my spacing isn't right here, but that's okay. So there's the first one. In fact, they should all be in here. They're only showing one because of where I put the clear, so I'll have to fix that. And then when we're done, I didn't put a read line in there, so it popped right off the screen. So let me put a read line back in there. I know I'm going to have to change my share back, so I'll do that right now. And let's fix it so we can run it and hopefully then take a break and put this one to rest. All right, so let's see. All right, so I just added that read line so it didn't fly off the screen. All right, this clear that's in here, there, I don't want to clear here because I want it to output everybody's information. All right, so let's see if there I fixed it. So file, save all. And again, I want to run it. I'll run it one more time afterwards to check the error stuff, but I would like to run it once. And let me run it. All right, I'm going to change my share right now. Again, am I right in assuming you can see on here, please enter your first name?
Yes.
Okay, so person 1, 425. Person 2, 534. Person 3, 623. Person 4, 555, 22. Person 5, 654, 33. Person 6, 730. So here they are. Person 1, 400 divided by 25 is 16. Person 2, person 3, person 4, person 5, person 6. All right. Once I hit enter here, I should get my totals. But before we do, let's see. The lowest MPG should be 14.71 and the highest should be 2609. Let's see if that's the case. All right, 14.71, 26.09, and our average. So let me run it one more time, which is going to necessitate me changing my share again, but give me just a second here. Try to pretty this up. So miles per gallon, don't need one of those. All right, so let me run it one more time. And the reason I'm running it one more time is, is so we can go in and check the error conditions and the error handling that we put in here. Again, you can now see on the black screen, please enter your first name, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if I put nothing in there, defaulted to none. And I'll do the same thing, and that was the message. Value does not fall within the expected range. All right, and I'll do the same thing for the last name. Okay, so that should be none, none for the first one we put in. Okay, let's put in something in here that's non-numeric. Hello. Non-numeric miles driven input. Let's put in something that's out of range. Out of range miles input. Let's put out of range in the other direction. 1001, because our range was up to 1000. All right. Does it look like it took that? And that isn't good. So I'll have to check that. All right. So Bob, 23, 4, Mary, 55, 11, Ken, 600, 24, Bill, 500, 32, Katie, 999, 33. Okay, well, let's look at the first one. Did put in none, none. it took miles driven, which is wrong. That's got to be checked. All right, that's going to be our low. You can tell that. Everything else appears to have worked. So I've got to go check that right now. All right. So again, I've got to stop this, which will mean I have to restart my share. And let's check that check. So this was gallons. If number is less than min gallons or number is greater than max gallons. If number is less than min miles or number is greater than max miles. One of these it didn't like. So let's see. Number, that's correct. Let's make sure I set these up correctly. All right, my min miles is 1. My max miles is 1,000. My min gallons is 1. My max gallons is 100. That actually looks like it should have worked, but it didn't. So let's come in here and see if we can figure out why. Miles. We passed in miles, we passed in gallons. Switch on the type. Yeah, that's correct. Miles. And that one's gallons. Those are both correct. Enter miles driven between, and it did say between 1 and 1,000. All right. So if it's less, if it's less than 0 or it's greater than 1,000, it should have written this. OOR miles input. And then it should have skipped the else. It should have hit, that's the problem, I think. It's hitting the brake right there. That's why it's taking it. So but even when it hits the brake, it should still be coming back to here, and flag should still be false. So I'm going to make sure, I'm going to say if that's the case on both these, I want to say flag equal false here, and I want to say it here as well. The program works, except I should say it doesn't work completely because it's not totally handling the errors. That should be flag equals there and here. So I'm going to save this. File, save all. I'm going to run this again. I'm going to change my share. And we're taking a break in literally 2 minutes, hopefully. All right. So 1, 1. And now let's put in something out of range. So -45. Out of range driven. Let's try it again. -56. Well, that worked. 1,001. It still worked. All right, 600. Gallons, let's do the same thing. 0, that's out of range. 101, that's out of range. So 624. Let's do 2, 2, 567, and 83. 3, 3. Again, let's try it out of range. -2 doesn't take it. 1001 doesn't take it. All right, so 3, 4, 5, 12, 4, 4, 6, 5, 4, 23, 5, 5, 500, 20, 6, 6. Well, I spelled that wrong. 6, 777, and 29. And it seems like it's working now. All right, it's got everything in there. And then enter. There's our highest, our lowest, and our average. All right. So like I said, I will save this one. All right, I will save the entire, because I mean, this is something I asked people to try doing on their own, and hopefully they did. I don't mean you, but everybody. So let's take 10 minutes. It's 10:40. Let's come back at 10:50. And thankfully, the other programs aren't as difficult as this one. So I'll come back and we will write the other two programs. Okay, so come back, please, at 10:50. Just going to copy in my comments. So. All right, it's 10:50. I hope you're back. And I'm going to quickly do this rank and lookup GUI, and I'm going to do it both as a GUI one and then redo it as a console. Now I copied in the comments, and to save a little bit of time, I copied in the arrays right away. So I created the 6 different arrays right here, and I just copied them in. So we got an array of first names, an array of last names, an array of majors, an array of campuses, and an array of emails. In addition, during the break, I made the GUI, just so we didn't have to waste a lot of time going over that. All right, I mean, in my opinion, you watching me create a GUI is kind of silly. All right, I also put in the code for the clear, which is just clearing the text box, the label, and setting the focus. And I also put in the code for the exit, which is our tried and true exit stuff. So the only one to write in here then is the search. Move this thing up. So I'm going to write the search routine right now. So again, the idea is I come in here and I think one of the people's name is like Mary King. So I put in King in there and I click search and it should come back and say the term King was found. Okay. And hopefully what I just said makes at least some sense. All right. So when we come in here to search, well, I tried to set this thing up a little bit modularly. So I first called a routine called enter search term. I'm going to get an error because, of course, it hasn't been written yet. So I'll put it right here. Private void, enter search term. All right, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in here is to enter the term. Well, we already have a term. All right, it's inside of that text box. So I said string T for term equals txt search term dot text. And if T dot trim dot, that's all I need, dot trim, if that is equal to the empty string, you didn't enter anything. All right, well, that isn't right. So I did a message box because this is a GUI dot show. And I just said search term was left empty. Empty. So that'll be the string. Our title will be no search term entered. This will be just an OK button. And if that is an error, so we've got that. All right. So if that's the case, well, I mean, really all we want to do is we want to reset the focus there. And then we want to get the heck out. So let's see if that works. So again, if I put nothing in here and I click this, I should get a message box and then it should come right back to here. All right, search term was left empty. I click OK, and there's my cursor. So that works. Good. So what's left? Well, if I get down to here, I put something in there into the search box. Okay, so I'm going to call, I just call this make the search. And I called it right from here. And I passed in the search term. All right, then I wrote that down here. So private void, make the search. And string and st for search term. And we can call it whatever we want. So what doesn't it like here? Yeah, everything's been fixed. Okay, so if I find the term, I want to get the heck out. But if I don't find it, I want to keep searching until I've searched everything. So I created a Boolean that I called found, and I set it equal to false to start with. All right. Now, this is where it gets a little ugly because your idiot instructor asked you to check 1, 2, 3, 4 different arrays. So you've got an if in here in your for loop with 3 else ifs. So for int LCV equals 0, LCV less than, I can pick out any one of these. So I'll say first names dot length and then add 1 to it. So this is going to be almost identical to what we looked at in class the other day. So I want to come in here and say if first names dot LCV or LCV dot to upper equal, to upper dot contains our search term dot to upper. Well, then we found a match. What do we want to do if we find a match? We just want to set found equal to true. Right? Technically, I guess I could have done a break right there also. Okay, so found equal true and break. All right, now I'm going to copy this because we're doing the same thing. I said 3 times. What doesn't it like here with this curly? Did I miss a parenthesis? It did. All right. So that'll check for the first names. Now we have to check for the last names. All right. Then we have to check for the majors. Then we have to check for the campus. So we're doing the same thing 4 times. All right. Once we fall out of this, and this is the end of our for loop, then found is either true because we found it, or it's false because we did not find it. All right. So if found, that means, again, we found it. So I'm going to say LBL results.text equals the term plus ST plus was found. And there's better ways I can write it, I'm sure, than what I just did. But else, it was not found. So let's run it. Whoops. And after we run it, we'll go through the entire program. So file, save all, and let's check for one of each thing. So let's check for a first name. Let's say just Ma. So that should find either Mary or Mark. So we'll check for Ma. For the last name, we'll check for King. For the majors, we'll put Web Dev. For the campuses, I'll put Wentz. All right, so we'll do something along those lines. So let me run this. All right, I think I have to change my share again so you can actually see the run. All right, so if I put in Ma, because that was a Mary and a Mark, it was found. All right, if I put in a Jeff, I'm not in there. Oh, it says it was found. Is there a Jeff in there? Well, let's look. I didn't think I had a Jeff in there. Maybe I did. There is no Jeff there. There is no Jeff there. Oh, something is goofed up then. Okay. First names, last names, majors, campus. Search term, search term. Found is true, found is true. Get out of there. Oh, how about that? Was not found. Okay, let me run it. I put the term was found both times. So let me go back to this. I'm going to have to change my share. Sorry. So this one originally said was found when it should have said was not found. All right, so let me run it again and change my share again. So Ma was found. Jeff was not found. All right. Oh, hello. Are you still there, Grant?
Yes, I am.
All right. I hit the wrong key. I may have stopped recording. I don't even know. I did. Oh my goodness. Oh man, I'm not a happy camper right now. But let me go back to this and at least show you, because I'm not sure how much you did or didn't see, but wanted to show you that indeed, let's see if it's still taping. Says that it is.
On my end, it looks like the red dot never disappeared. So
Good. That's good. All right. And the good news is I didn't swear either because I got mad, but I didn't swear. All right. So, all right. So again, the term Jeff was not found. If I come in here and we've got app web dev, that was found. But if I put apps, which is not in there, was not found. All right. And for majors, if I put in info information technology, that was found. But if I put in information and I spell it wrong, was not found. All right. For campus, if I put in Wentzville, it's found. But if I put in Wentzville, too many L's, was not found. So everything there appears at least to work. So that one's done. And again, I will save this I will save the entire repository and put that out, give you the address for it in just a bit. All right. So let me change and go back to here and go back. No, I don't want to go into Teams, Jeff. All right. Can you see Visual Studio on your screen?
yes.
Okay. What I'm going to do to try to make life easier for both of us here is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab everything, all of this junk that's in here, even though I can't use all of it because I want to make a console app. But I'm just going to grab all of it, copy it to the clipboard, and then go to my console app. So this can probably be, well, this can be closed. And here it is. So I'm going to get errors for doing this. Okay, there will be errors in here, but so let's just do it like this. What did we call first in here? We called, I mean, like I said, this is a lot shorter program right here. First of all, I'm going to put this in a loop so I can run it over and over again. I don't have to just keep running it. So I'm just going to say while 1 equal 1. I'm literally putting the program in an infinite loop on purpose. And I'm going to tell it to clear. And I'll say string st for search term equals enter search term. I'll get that error because, of course, that has not yet been written. So let's write that right now. Static string enter search term. All right. And just like we did before, so I'm going to say here string t equals nothing. Oh, where am I? Okay, so it equals nothing. All right. While t is equal to nothing. Okay. Write enter term to search for t equals read line. All right. And let's see. So while it's okay, boom. And then return t. Now it's going to be a little funky if we put nothing in there, but that's okay. Okay. So again, it's virtually doing the same thing we just did inside of the GUI. All right. And when we call the string search term, okay, that's fine. So we're passing in nothing. Yeah, that's fine. And t is going to be the search term. All right. And we're just telling it, I put it into a loop because if it equals nothing, if we left it blank, it should just come back in here if we put nothing in there. So we should say here if t dot trim is equal to nothing. So if we do leave it blank, it'll come back down with a read line. It'll say, oh, it's still blank. So it'll ask you to do it again. Eventually we'll put something in there and then we'll return that to the user. All right. So that's the first thing. And then, well, we'll just call again, make the search. And we need the search term. So we'll pass that in. So I'll do this, copy this, and we'll write that right underneath this. So static void, make the search, string, search term. And the good news is I should now be able to go back to here and virtually copy all of this that we had in there before. Now, I mean, do I have to change anything? We'll see in just a second. Okay, but tried to write it that way so that I just paste that in. Now, I don't want to say LBL, but everything else looks like it worked. So if it was found, I just want to do a write line that says that the term was found. And if it's not, I want to do a write line that says the term was not found. Now, I could be wrong here, but I think we're finished already. So let me do a file save. Let me run it. Got to change my startup project. So I want it to be this one. To make sure I have no errors there. It is running, so let me change my share. This one we can check very quickly because, again, I put it into an infinite loop. Am I right? You can see enter term to search for?
Yes.
Okay. So again, I put in Jeff, which is not there. Oh, I need a read line in there because it's popping right off the screen. I don't think it'll take it from here, so let me check. But it might. So let me jump back. Oh, it did. All right. So notice if I put in something, well, it shouldn't have, well, Jeff, whatever. It's saying something, but then it's jumping right back into enter term to search for. What if I put in something that is in there? Well, whatever it's doing is jumping out of it too fast. So let me check. All right, so let's see. Line, right, line, read line. That should be doing that. T, make the search. I'm not sure if this clear is goofing stuff up or not. I think that's the only place I've got to clear in here. So I want to jump back and run it again. Hopefully you can still see it on your screen. Oh, didn't like, oops, wrong one. Sorry. There it is. So Jeff, now let's just pop it. What something is making it. Thought we'd be finished. We'll make the search. Let's put a read line right here. Jeff, Bob. Wow, it's just jumping right out of here, and it's telling it to run it again. So what is forcing this to run it again? I have to go back and check the code. Equal 1. Search. Enter search term. Make the search. That read line there should have been. Why that's not catching it? See if it's even in here. I am going to stop the run here and start it again. So. Hopefully you can see that enter term to search for on the screen. So king. The term king was found. Hit any key to continue. All right, now I've got too many in there, but that's still fine. Again, app, that was found, but apps should not be found, and it was not. All right, so Wentzville should be found. All right, but if I put in Wentzville with too many L's, it should not be found. So it looks like it's working. All right, so I've got too many read lines in there. They hit any key to continue is fine, but that's fine. All right, so let me stop the run because I know right where that read line is too. It's the one at the bottom, or that's the one up. Where are we? Here. We no longer need that one. Okay, let me change my share. We'll finish this up in about a minute or two. All right. All right, so this program is virtually identical to the GUI one we wrote, except we changed the GUI stuff to console stuff. So we've got our 5 different things in here. We're not doing anything with the emails, so that's why it's still gray. All right, I put it into an infinite loop in main that said, basically, we set our search term to enter the search term. And we are stuck in a loop here until we do put in something. Then we call make the search and we pass that term in with us. All right. And then inside of here, we just have this local variable found that we set to false. If it finds a match here, it sets it to true and breaks. If it finds it here, it sets it to true and breaks. If it finds it here and it sets it to true, it breaks. If it finds it here, it sets it to true and breaks. If it gets all the way through and doesn't find it, found will be false. So it'll say the term was not found. But if it found it, it's going to say that the term was found. All right. Then we, as it says here, we tell it to enter any key to continue, and we let them run it all over again. That was nice. There. Questions?
No, especially
Okay.
the first one really cleared it up for me today.
Okay, good. All right. Well, and I knew that that one would take longer. All right. It was purposely written to be a little harder than the other two. I will tell you, and I'm not lying, there are 2 questions on the test. The first one is a GUI app that if you understood the one we just did, you should have no problems with it. The second one is a console app, and it's a little bit different from what we've been doing. All right. But you're just asked to input some information and then throw it into an array and basically paste it back out again. All right. There will be a thing on there again that will tell you exactly how everything is graded, etc. So one more thing that I want to do before we call it a period. And again, if you have to leave or whatever, I understand, but I'm going to stay here and I want to bring up the homeworks for chapter 8 very quickly. So there is the part 2 new. That. I think I've got them both on here, so let me just change my share. We'll be done in 5 minutes. All right. So this is the chapter 8 homework. It's on 2 different parts. The first part, this one, we already went through. I still want you to do problems that I do in class. So you have to do this one, but I've gone over this one, how to do it already. All right. I did that, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. The next one, this one you have to do yourselves. It's not hard. You have to ask them how many nights they stayed. All right. You could even make an array here called 1, 2 nights and make another one called 200. All right. But if they stayed 1 night, it should be $200. 2 nights, it should be $400. Then you've got 3, 4. If they stayed 3 nights, it should be 100 or 540. 4 nights should be 720, etc. Very simple interface. Label, 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 text box, button. If you want to make it just like theirs and not have a clear and an exit, that's totally fine. So you have to do this one. You have to do this one, but we went over this one yesterday in class. All right. Now, the next one's a little different in that you got to make up your own. You have to make up your own 3 arrays. So just pick yourself 3 to 5 movie names, find out their directors, and give a little description. It doesn't have to be long, but this is like almost exactly what we did yesterday with the game not found. It's almost exactly the same thing. This thing with the credit card masker, you do not have to do. You can do it if you want to. You do not have to do that. So on this first one, again, you've got to do lab 4, which is the zip code lookup, lab 5, which is the resort thing and how much you're going to pay. Lab 6, which is the game database, again, which is pretty much, it is the one we just did yesterday, and Lab 7, which is the movie database. You do not have to do this Lab 8. You do not have to do this one. All right. So on the other one then, so this is Labs New, and he's got a Labs New Part 2. So let me bring that up. All right, on that one, this one literally should take you a matter of minutes. You just have to reverse the numbers you put in there. All right. If you put them into an array, you could always do a reverse and then put them out too, if you wanted to. This one, the sorted thing, we went over yesterday. But yes, you are still supposed to do it. Do not spend any time doing Lab 5. I just don't think this was well written, but that's my personal opinion. All right, it's not worth doing. And then finally, yeah, I'd like you to do this one because it's not that different from what you're going to do tomorrow for the console one on the test. So again, on this particular one, you are to do LB3, LB4, skip LB5, and do LB6. So 3, 4, and 6. All right. And then finally, let me bring this up. I don't want you to take this last thing. So that was the labs, and for the homework, oops. Oh, where are you? Come on. There it is. All right. For the homework, you create this. You set up an array that can hold up to 10 numbers. One thing you might want to check, this is your only input right here. That's your only input. All right. And it's call it score or whatever, doesn't matter. But if it's greater than or equal to 10, it's already filled. If the length is 10, it's filled. So you shouldn't allow any more to go in there. All right. So let's just, so you put in 10 numbers. All right. And you figure out the average. And then in a separate thing, put that into a message box. You'll just print out the 10. On the first one, you do it using an array. On the second one, it's different because you use a list. All right. You can use a list. You can use an array list. All right. Now with this one, with an array list, it says, basically it gives you a number in there, but with a list, it'll automatically resize itself. So technically you can keep putting in grades forever and ever and ever. All right. All right. Tomorrow will be the test. On Thursday, I'm going to go over as much of the material in chapters 9, 10, and 11 as possible. And Friday will be a lab for the entire period. On Friday, we'll see where we are. Right now, I'm leaning towards next Monday also either being a lab, or if I don't get the chance on Thursday to go through 9, 10, and 11, we'll go through probably 11 then, and the rest of the period will be a lab. You can count on your test being tomorrow, and your next test will probably, the one on 9, 10, and 11, will probably be next Thursday. All right, whatever day that is. I don't know what it is, like the 6th or something. All right, thanks for sticking with me. All right, and I will be online tomorrow for the test. I will have the test emailed to you by 8 o'clock. As always, I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes going over what's on the test to make sure you understand it. Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.